Hello and welcome back to the Sleuth Bears. Today we will be discussing the existence of dinosaurs in the modern era. Well, not that dinosaurs exist currently, but did they exist ever, even? But before we do that, we're going to kick it off with some Bible trivia. And so today's question is, who was Jesus' most famous cousin?
I know the answer. So if you guys want to guess first.
I don't know why I am being led to this answer because I am pretty sure it's wrong, but I feel like it's possible that it's right, but a 1% chance. Is it any way possible that it was John the Baptist? Because I feel like it was not.
Philip,
I do not know.
Ross is correct.
Nice. I need more self confidence next time.
Based. So today we will be discussing dinosaurs, and really, let's go ahead and have Ross kick us off.
So basically, a question that I feel like a lot of people have as Christians is dinosaurs don't really fit that well in the Bible because the Bible kind of leads us to believe that the earth is not as old as modern scientists claim to be. And a lot of Christians will be like, oh, yeah, maybe the 6 days was not a literal 6 days, or oh, yeah, there's probably a big gap in between the 6 days and like whenever the first human was made, which animals and plants were made in the book of Genesis before Adam. However, I personally have always thought that to be wrong, which maybe it is right. I honestly, at the end of the day, do not know. But the reason why is because in Genesis, it will say that the earth was created in 6 days. And then in Genesis, it will also talk about how, Noah lived to be 950 years old or however long. So, by that logic, since it's the same book, it doesn't really make sense that, the time periods would be different. So by that logic, Noah would have to live trillions of years or something like that. But that's just my take.
You may have just heard Wyatt sneezing in the background. I'd just like to say bless you.
Bless you. Bless you.
Absolutely. So do you think we should when we're talking about do dinosaurs exist, I think Ross is right. This kind of naturally leads into how old is the earth, because we're taught in school that the earth is 63 trillion years old or whatever, and
I think it's 4.5 billion, but some factors.
whatever.
But at the end
It's
of the
just
day, it does not
some
matter.
ridiculously large number that is unfathomable, and the earth is a million billion years old.
Can I say why it is unfathomably? I don't think I said that word right, but
Yeah.
a really big number. To me, it is a really big number because science has to make sense of unexplainable things. And if you're going to say that every single species came from one single cell and just evolved, you need a massive time frame to even make that plausible. But even then, it's not, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, talking about dinosaurs naturally leads to how old is the Earth, kind of naturally leads into discussions on evolution. I don't think, that's not the specific topic, but it kind of, those lend themselves to each other, obviously. Um, and at the same time, do you guys think that we should talk about how but before we talk about what we want to talk about, which is dinosaurs aren't real, just to, spoiler alert, do you think we should first kind of talk about how maybe dinosaurs and a 63 million year old earth and evolution could fit within the Christian faith? Because I know Ross just said some Christians might believe there were gaps in the timeline, blah blah blah. Should we address that first and explain those positions, or should we just get right into what we believe?
I think we might as well address it if you want to start with that. Or if somebody does. No, yeah, describing how dinosaurs fit into a biblical perspective is important because truly we do not know is the answer. We might think we know, but we do not know the 100% authentic answer. But basically, I guess I can break this down a little bit, but supposedly dinosaurs were on Noah's Ark, and the firmament was protecting the Earth from UV rays, and we basically that's why we lived longer back then. That's why dinosaurs were able to live longer because the UV rays were being like impacted by the firmament. But then when the Earth flooded, the firmament went away, and then dinosaurs died out afterwards, and now people don't live very long. That's basically the biblical perspective of how we explain dinosaurs, which was obviously thought up within the last 150 years, 200 years, whatever it was.
Yes, because the concept of dinosaurs is pretty young, but I do have something to add biblically. It does not mention dinosaurs in the Bible.
Well, I would hope it to be biblically.
However,
Absolutely, Wyatt.
even though it does not mention dinosaurs in the Bible, many people believe that it could. Like, I think dragon is mentioned a couple times. And before, Lane is shaking his head, so he might have a little bit to add. But before dinosaurs, like the term was made up, a lot of people would just describe them as dragons, which I do honestly believe that dragons were. My voice cracked a little bit, but I do believe that dragons were real. Potentially, again, I don't know, but we'll get into it a different time later.
Now,
Yeah,
Ross,
so-
well, hang on. I don't know if this
What
is
I gotta
you're
say is very
referring-
important.
What I was going to say is also very important.
Well,
And
what I was going to say is they were seen as a dragon bone or a giant bone. Nephilim. The end.
also, I think that
We talked
there's-
about Nephilim
guys.
on the last episode also. So if you want more of our take on that, maybe Nephilim are aliens, go check out last episode.
I think that things are also referred to as dragons in a metaphorical sense, if I'm not mistaken. I think that might be what Ross is talking about. I'm pretty sure in the book of Revelation, they say the dragon from the west, possibly referring to China.
Well, what
But
was
I'm
what is it called? Leviathan? What is that?
Yes, that
Anyone know about that?
That is the Loch Ness Monster.
So
don't have a mic.
So Philip said the Leviathan is the Loch Ness monster. In case you couldn't hear him, if I'm correct, Leviathan comes up in the book of Job, which coincidentally is my favorite book of the Bible. In case anyone was wondering,
That is good information.
or it's
thank
one
you.
of them at least. It's hard to pick a favorite. But if I remember correctly, Leviathan is mentioned, and it's at least typically thought of as a giant sea creature. Like at the depths of the ocean. It's like, sailors were afraid of the Leviathan in the sea or something. So that could be some sort of Loch Ness monster. That could be a dinosaur that's in the oceans. That could be some sort of giant aquatic dragon, an aquatic beast. There's also, I think, mentioned the behemoth, which I know less about. But the Leviathan, at least, could be a dinosaur, could be a dragon, could just be a big fish.
Yes, and the Leviathan does have a big backing that like it is a sea. Because like in Isaiah, it says in Isaiah 27:1, it says at the end of the verse, Leviathan, the coiling serpent, he will slay the monster of the sea. And something else I'm going to pull up because Philip is right. It does mention dragon in Revelations, Revelation, or just Revelation, before Lane corrects me with adding the S. It says in Revelation 12:3, it says, "Then another sign appeared in the heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head." I do not know what versions, because this website won't let me see like what translations. But like at the end of the day, like the dragon has to be kind of like in somebody's head to describe it. So I don't know.
John said
in
John
case
is
any-
writing the book of
In,
Revelation.
in case anybody was wondering, Revelation is my favorite book of the Bible.
Revelation 22, not 22, but Revelation chapter 20, verse 2, Ross, kind of just going off. I think you just said chapter 12 or 13. If you go to chapter 20, verse 2, it says, he seized the dragon, that ancient serpent, who is the devil or Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. So so that's exactly what Philip was talking about.
Metaphorical.
Of a dragon being a more metaphorical thing. So the point, I think, is in the Bible times the idea of dragons existed, obviously. And I think what people will point to, if you're a Christian who believes in dinosaurs, which is basically every Christian, probably, or most Christians, because most people believe in dinosaurs.
Because they just got so
It's taught as
immersed
a
in
fact.
popular culture and just taught in school, and it's like it's hard to not believe in something that is so just everywhere.
Right. Littlefoot and everything. Why might know some extra characters.
Well, what I was going to say is, like, people don't
Petrie.
believe, like, there might be
Pterodactyl.
some people that believe in dragons, but dragon is not in my opinion, does not feel like people don't believe in dragons. People believe in dinosaurs, but why not dragon? Why, if they were going to fake dinosaurs, why not just throw in dragons with them? Because they're such, like, they're in everything. Like, people talk about dragons, even when the Bible was being written. So why not throw dragons in there too?
So a thing with dragons is there's no like fossils of it, but like if they were to fly, then they'd have probably bird bones, which bird bones don't fossilize because they are hollow. But another
Pterodactyl.
thing, which do you know if they have fossils of that?
Well, they know they existed, supposedly.
Maybe, but a backing of I don't know the information, so I'm just gonna skip past it. But
Checkmate.
a backing for dragons though is if you look at all these ancient civilizations, and it is kind of seen as mythology, but like pretty much all of them believe in dragons, or at least have art with dragons and a ton of things with that, which is kind of crazy because like allegedly there's no connector between these civilizations, and they still like all had dragons in their art or whatever.
There's also the possibility that it could be more kind of like as Ross was describing the Leviathan, more of a large serpent. Then I feel like the thing about dragons that people don't necessarily believe in is more fiction is the fire-breathing dragon. So without that aspect, I think it's a lot more believable. So if you just think of it like as a big snake.
And I think maybe what Ross is trying to say is, why in the book of Revelation does it talk about dragons? And why do all of these ancient civilizations have dragons, and medieval times we have myths about dragons? It's like that had to come from somewhere. And if you're a Christian who believes in dinosaurs, you probably are saying people believed in dragons because there used to be dinosaurs. And maybe that was another story that was passed down by Noah, or the people of Noah's time seeing dinosaurs, passing that down, and then the legend of dinosaurs eventually morphed into discussions of dragons.
Yeah, so what I like why I originally said this to kind of circle back was a lot of people, because dragons were mentioned in the Bibles and dinosaurs were not, people think that they are the same thing and the name just switched. Does that make sense? Do you guys get that?
No, it makes sense.
So that is why I originally brought it up.
Absolutely.
So I think that let's like kind of maybe go through a little bit of the history of dinosaurs and like why we think that science might be wrong. So something that just stuck out to me probably more than anything was like I don't have the exact date. If somebody wants to search that up, you can, or you guys could just take my word for it. But dinosaurs, like the concept of dinosaurs did not exist, assuming that you are not accounting for like maybe dragons being the same as dinosaurs. That concept did not exist until like the 1840s, 50s, 60s, like, which is in the entire history of the earth, which could be like 6,000 something years or 4.5 billion, whatever. Like that time frame is still a very small time frame for this to just come out thin air.
So 5-second Google search reveals it's either 1841 or 42. British scientist Richard Owen coins the word dinosaur.
So, interesting note, George Washington had no idea that the dinosaurs existed. Had they ever?
Speak more on that.
The date that dinosaurs were discovered was after George Washington was alive.
So yeah, so Ross, do you want to give us a little bit more history? You know, what did he find that caused him to create, or not? What did he find that made him start believing in dinosaurs and spreading the idea of dinosaurs?
Yeah, so I believe the first like kind of potential like fossils or whatever was like from teeth. And from teeth they kind of were like, oh, where'd these teeth come from? Or something along that line. And then dinosaurs was coined. And then after dinosaurs was like made as a term is whenever they found like whenever they started to find like actual bones that aren't teeth. And you could also like look like in museums and stuff, you could see that like old like most of those bones, at least like 90% of them on display are not actual like fossilized bones, which is like they're all like molds or they're made. And there has been a fraudulent past with dinosaurs too. Like with the bones, there's been a lot of man-made ones that are told to be true because it is an industry. There's a lot of money in it. There's jobs in it, and everybody wants to have that big discovery. And there's some room for error. If anybody would like to add anything, feel free.
I was kind of hoping you would run through the whole history of the whole ordeal, the Bone War, if you will.
Yeah, so I can go through it a little bit more. I just felt like I was talking for a while, so I was gonna maybe pass the torch. But yeah, so whenever dinosaurs were first, like in the beginning years of it, there were basically two scientists, which I don't know if I want to say their name because some of them are looking kind of hard to say. Othniel Charles Marsh is one of them, and then
Marsh and
Edward
Cope.
Drinker Cope is the other one. And basically, these scientists, there was like a race. It's also known as the Bone Wars or the Great Dinosaur Rush. And basically, they just wanted to have all these discoveries, finding the bones and everything as quickly as they could for the like name recognition, like just the history. And whenever people are competing like that, there is room for a lot of like, people are going to cheat, athletes cheat. If you want to win at something, a lot of people are going to turn to cheating. That's just human nature. And something else that we could say too is so dinosaurs are like created as a concept, and now all of a sudden people are finding bones. Whereas, like, where were these bones in the entire history of the earth before, whenever, humans were exploring the earth and all of that? Like, people were in caves and stuff. Nobody ever found a dinosaur bone.
Yeah, I think to date, I think they've only found 2,100 sets of dinosaur bones. So 2,100 dinosaurs in total, potentially. Which just seems a bit on the low side. Just figuring like they should be everywhere. If we're finding 2,100 different dinosaurs, where are the other dinosaurs?
Of the same kind is what you're saying. Like
No, just like there
yeah,
should be
but, like,
more.
If there's 21 different like kinds, there should
No,
be,
no,
like,
not even 21
T-Rex
kinds.
everywhere.
21 sets.
Oh,
21 sets. 2,100 sets. Sorry.
okay. Also, another thing I'm curious about, Ross. I don't know the answer to this, but you have your computer open, so maybe a 5-second Google search. I'm also curious how many like dinosaur bones or like skeletons have been found outside of like professional archaeology.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. How many independent researchers?
Like how many people have just like stumbled across?
I know I
dinosaur
saw
bone?
on LinkedIn a student from a university found a dinosaur bone or bones plural, not sure, Right, so there's one. I think she may have been in the paleontology program at the university. I'm not 100% certain. That'd be a pretty cool find, though,
Yeah, that would be cool.
figuring it is real.
But it could be a very real like bone, but like people don't know what bones belong to, which is a consider. It's like, oh, this bone's huge. This could be a dinosaur, which is something else to potentially think about. And so also with what Wyatt said, with like something with like 2,100 sets, or even then, like regardless, we have to consider that with what science says. I mean, dinosaurs used to rule the world. Like they had a giant era. They were everywhere. They were thriving, and they were killed off by like an asteroid or something. So if that were true, and there were so many, and they were so dominant, these massive like carnivores, omnivores, then why is it so hard to find the bones? And also, I'm trying to find like every site kind of says different things. Some say like that we haven't found a completed skeleton. Some say that we have found 100% completed Triceratops skeleton. But like the thing is, maybe it's true, but again, it could be fraudulent. We don't really know. But it's very odd to not find a full skeleton.
I'm looking at an article from Forbes right now, written by David Bresson, published I think like 2 years ago or something. And it kind of gives a history of it. The title of the article is 150 years after its first discovery, the first complete dinosaur skeleton ever has finally been studied in detail. And I read the entire article, and it doesn't say anything about a complete dinosaur skeleton being found. So if you want to email Forbes and email David Bresson and tell him that his article is bad, I will probably be doing the same. It basically just gives like it basically just talks about like Richard Owen, who was the guy we talked about before, who discovered it in like 1841 or 1842, who coined the word dinosaurs. Basically, what was going on was a bunch of people were finding bones, and this Richard Owen guy was like, cause like people were finding bones, and they're like, oh look, there's bones over here, there's bones over here, and this guy was like, oh, they must all be connected. Let's all call them dinosaurs. And so that's where it started from. But like Ross said, I'm not really seeing like in this article, and I don't know, there's others obviously, but this one, I mean, Forbes is a pretty big publication. And they like, there's nothing that this article, it seems like it will talk about a fully completed dinosaur skeleton, but they don't have anything. And I know there's also instances like I don't know the full facts here, but there's something about New Jersey, like the dinosaur in New Jersey, where they say they basically found some bones, and it's nowhere near complete, but they just like crafted what they thought a dinosaur could look like, but they only have like some. Oh, this is according to them, so this is like their best guess is they have like a tiny part of the skull, and they're like from that they somehow like extrapolate an entire what the head would look like, what the muscle mass would look like. And so, like, if that's happening on that scale, it's probably happening on a larger scale too. And they're just saying, well, we found some bones and we're going to guess that they went together like this. And even though we've never found them together like this at all, we've never found anything close to an entire completed skeleton. We're just going to guess that, oh, this must be a leg and this must be, a spine. And we're just going to say that this is a dinosaur.
And also I think this is important because all these dinosaurs, like a T-Rex was, I don't know what the kind of dinosaur they found, but I'm sure the T-Rex and the Stegosaurus, those were dinosaurs that people knew about back in the 1800s. So it's not like they've been like finding like new evidence and like, oh, okay, like we have now that we have enough bones, we've collected enough bones to piece these all together. Like these were all pieced together back in like the 1800s. And that just seems a bit sketch to me personally
Yeah,
as a
and
person.
I mean, Wayne, do you have something to add? You seem like okay. So also something to consider is I do believe that a lot of the bones that people are thinking are dinosaur bones could possibly be like real bones. I don't think it's all fraudulent because I mean paleontologists do dig it up, and it would be crazy for all of them to be in on it. But if you like Google like the skeleton of like maybe a rabbit or something, it kind of shows like you can't really tell what these things are going to look
Not the
like,
rabbit thing.
which could lead them to make false claims or something, or these bones could belong to complete other things. Like these bones could belong to like let's say Nephilim or something that was like in the Bible. Like we don't really know where the bones go. And to me, I'm no doctor or anything or scientist, but I mean bones just kind of look like bones across like from all animals.
I'm not a vet, but I know what a dog is.
True. But also something to consider.
In the Matt Walsh documentary, What is a Woman? He goes to a women and gender studies professor, doctor at a university. He says, "You study women and gender studies. What is a woman?" And he could not tell him.
Yeah, and to relate that to what we were talking about, scientists can actually look at bones and tell like the gender of humans. So, I mean, the technology is there to like kind of in the defense of dinosaurs, like there probably is something with science and like they could tell things by looking at bones. Even though to me, I think all bones look alike. There is something there. I just am not informed about it at the moment.
On the website Quora, which is like a forum website, it's like basically kind of like Yahoo Answers.
A very reliable source
Yeah,
for
no, this is
information.
the top notch research. The question posed. This was posted. I can't really see. I'm not super familiar with this website, so I don't know when this was posted. It looks like 6 years ago, maybe. The question was, when were the first dinosaur bones discovered? That's the question, and there's an answer here by, this is actually the top answer, by Yoshki Benstada Pandora. And his answer to when were the first dinosaur bones discovered, he said, "Dinosaurs were never discovered. They were planted by the Freemasons in order to discredit the Bible."
Yeah, which could be true. And like I said about like how
Time to talk
dinosaur
about
bones,
Dune.
how dinosaur bones could have been anything. Like I believe that current science, for example, I don't think actual giants like Nephilim were a thing, whereas they are said in the Bible. And I believe that it's possible that they're funneling those bones of the Nephilim to make or craft dinosaurs, because those bones would obviously be big. Now, science does say, like, I actually have an article pulled up. It is a .com website. It's discovermagazine.com. So I don't know if it's credible. I haven't done my due diligence on the site. However, it does
FDD.
say that the largest hominoid, and then it says like a really scientific name that I'm not even going to attempt to say, may have stood at 10 feet tall, which I mean, that is giant to me. But whenever I think of like Nephilim, I think probably bigger than 10 feet tall. But again, I do not know.
And going on more of like this could be planted by some secret society in the book Dune and the movie Dune that was just released. There is actually so Paul's mom is actually a part of this kind of like a secret society thing. The Bene Gesserit, I think is what it's called, and they actually went to the planet Dune and planted a prophecy of some I think like a prince or something like that would come and be the savior, be the Messiah. Um, and so they actually did that like 1,000 years before Paul went to the planet. So whenever jump 1,000 years into the future, they can use that to craft whatever narrative they want. And they use Paul to go into the planet, and basically they all think that he's the Messiah, and but obviously he's not. It was just planted by the secret society. So it's possible that all these bones were either like some of them are being covered up as possible Nephilim, and then some of them, like like a T-Rex skull, is just completely fabricated and not true.
Yeah. That's a good point by Wyatt. I would say also, so kind of on a similar thing. It just feels weird. And someone feel free to fact check us. But what it seems like, kind of from the research that we have found, um, I think that it's kind of seems like it's a oh, what's it called? It's like confirmation bias. There's this guy who was like, oh well, we found some things that look like teeth, and we found some bones that maybe look like reptiles, and so basically I'm going to create this theory that they're all connected and called dinosaurs, and then all the big bones that we find in the future, we're just going to assume are dinosaurs. And it's like, well, that doesn't really feel like true. Like that doesn't feel like good like science to me. Like, where's the scientific method? You know what I'm talking about? The hypothesis, the experiment, the conclusion. They're just like, all right, so we've got some teeth and we got some bones. Those are dinosaurs. And by the way, anyone who ever discovers any other big bones across the world, those are also dinosaurs. And if you disagree with us, you are stupid and anti-intellectual, and you just don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, well, bro, what if these aren't actually dinosaur bones? You haven't actually found a completed one that's connected that makes you think it's this big reptile. You're just piecing them together yourself and making them, you're the like all the ones you've seen, like we've talked about. Like if you go to a museum, like Museum of Natural History or whatever in Washington D.C. at the Smithsonian, like those dinosaur skeletons obviously are not real skeletons. Like those were made in China or whatever, like in a factory, and they piece them together there based on what they think bones might look like. But all of the real bones are like deep, like in scientific labs somewhere, supposedly, that only top researchers can look at. Like the general public, we can't go look at those bones, so we don't actually know what they look like.
So, in the defense of dinosaurs here, my voice keeps on cracking sometimes. Hopefully, the mic doesn't pick that up as much.
You'll hit puberty soon.
Thank you. But so a lot of those bones are actual, like they're molds of actual bones or casts or whatever. So it's not like they're completely just like making them, but they are at least inspired by other bones.
But if we can't look at them, how do we know that?
Even if we could, unfortunately, we ourselves are not smart enough to dissect. But no, yeah, but I mean,
I think that's what
that is true.
the whole thing is. Like how are we certain of basically anything in this field if they're not letting us look at it and really like because they like don't even let anyone go examine. Like you have to be, you know, and we can talk about how they are possibly placing people in certain positions to from possible Freemason society, secret society stuff, Illuminati, whatever. And so there's only certain people that can go and examine these supposed dinosaur bones. Like we will never see a real dinosaur bone.
I think that museums might have some on display, but in the defense of dinosaurs,
They're just
again,
saying they're real if they even
which
have
no
some.
is true. It can be fraudulent. At the end of the day, we do not know. But I mean, if these are like what 250 million years old, that could just be a random number. I just feel like maybe I heard that in a science class. But like, I mean, they're probably gonna be really fragile. They're apparently really rare, even though dinosaurs once dominated the Earth. I don't know why they're rare, if that's the case, but that is what we are led to believe. So I think that's probably why they don't want the general public doing that. And if they're so rare and stuff, and honestly, bones are cool. Dinosaurs are cool. Like looking at them, so people might like they're probably worth a lot of money. People might steal them.
No, and I agree. But like the Mona Lisa is on display in a museum, and that's like one of the I don't know, is that like the highest, most rare, expensive painting ever? Like if that's on display and that's never been stolen, it's never been um vandalized, whatever you want to call it. Like I can't go and just look at a real dinosaur bone. What damage would that do?
I think that there might be a fake one on display, but I honestly do not know. But even then, there is a difference, in my opinion. This might be controversial, but at the end of the day, the Mona Lisa was created by a human, an artist, whereas if dinosaurs were real, they were created by God. So one is, even though like it's a one of a kind, it's harder to replicate.
So here's something interesting, also taken from that Quora comment. Ross, while I'm talking about this, you're gonna want to look this up so you can expound on it and fill in the gaps. But this comment mentioned something called the Pilt Down Man. That is PILT down man. And this is pretty interesting. So this is from Wikipedia, but Ross is gonna do some fact checking and some digging while I'm reading this. But I'm just gonna go ahead and just read this. This is the second paragraph on Wikipedia. So in 1912, Charles Dawson, who is an amateur archaeologist from Britain, I believe, claimed in 1912 he claimed that he had discovered the missing link between ape and man. In February 1912, Dawson contacted some guy, keeper of geology at the Natural History Museum, Arthur, stating he had found a section of a human-like skull near somewhere in Britain. That summer, they went to the site and supposedly found more stuff, and then they reconstructed it, and they said, look, we found this skeleton of an ancient human ancestor from like 500,000 years ago. This proves evolution is real. We found the bones. Here they are. Here's everything. This is in 1912, mind you. This is over 100 years ago that this happened. They were like, look, we found these bones. This proves that humans evolved. We even put it together, and we can see here's where they were monkeys or whatever. Here's the missing link. Here we found the middle stage, and now we can look at our skeletons and be skulls, or as modern humans. Well, in 1953, which is like 40 years later, it was discovered it was all a hoax. Like literally it was all a scam done by these two guys, and none of it was real at all. And so, but it's crazy because for 40 years, like people believed this. Like it wasn't questioned. You were thought of as like intellectually, like you basically had to commit like intellectual suicide to question them because they were like, oh no, they have skeletons, we have fossils, blah 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 blah. This is true, and it's like, well, 40 years later, actually it was a scam, and they planted the whole thing, and it's just not real. So I bring this up to say, and I had never heard of this until right now. So I might be missing, I might not have the full story, but I think at least the general gist here is in the past, the scientific, paleontologic, archaeological community has fabricated fossils and has fabricated skeletons to try to, just prove a point that already exists and to try to just confirm their already existing bias instead of maybe seeing that this isn't true, and they created false fossil and false skeleton bones. So if they did it then and people believed it for half a century, they could still be doing it now.
Yes, absolutely. What you said is like true. I confirmed it. Well, you were. I also found the same Wikipedia page.
I confirmed it too myself.
But I also saw other sources. But
actually,
yeah,
the head of the Archaeological Society just walked in the door and he confirmed it too.
Yeah, but that is like a big issue I've always had with evolution, and I honestly think it's ridiculous to believe in, at least on a macro scale. Like, obviously, like for example, sickle cells or whatever. If you guys know about that disease, that is an example of natural selection, which kind of leads to evolution, but on a very, very small scale, which is real and that is provable. But like, why is there no middle between a monkey and a man?
No, yeah,
People
and
believe
like,
that.
I mean, I don't know how long exactly they're saying these dinosaur bones are, but like they're saying millions of years. And I'm fairly certain that I don't think are they saying that humans existed millions of years ago? I'm not 100%. But like
Neanderthals.
Yeah.
so like I don't know. I feel like we have a dinosaur bone that they are saying is this many millions of years old, and we also are saying that humans evolved from an ape between like millions of years old, and we have dinosaur bones from this era, but we don't have a cross between a monkey and a human or whatever you want to call that.
It
I
kind of
don't
goes
know.
along with what we've been
That's with
saying.
zero research done. That's just me kind of
No,
spitballing.
it does. It goes along with like kind of what everybody's been saying. Like the way that Lane described it as intellectual suicide to deny dinosaurs at this point. Evolution is kind of the same thing in my opinion. It's just widely accepted in like everybody's like, yeah, if you don't believe in evolution, you're an idiot. Yet there's no proof. There's no missing link. There's no proof that evolution actually does happen.
Even, and this is even like heavily infiltrating Christians like today. Like I like talk to Christian people, I talk to people at church about stuff like this, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well, you know, the 7-day creation is a metaphor." And I'm like, "Bro, like, what are you talking about?" And they're like, "Well, the Earth is a million billion years old, obviously." And I'm like, "Well, how do you know that?" And they're like, scientists." And I'm like, "Well, bro, what do you mean? I mean, who do you trust more, scientists or God?"
So, the next question, I guess, would be.
Well, I have something on point here.
So do I.
Well, you're asking a question.
Well, yeah, but like it's
Mine
related
relates
to that.
so deeply to what Lane
Do
said.
you believe in carbon dating? And like,
I don't even know what that is.
like the age.
No shot.
Okay.
But what I was gonna say is I know someone personally, and they told me they were like the light from the star took 65 million years to reach us. So doesn't that prove that the like whatever Earth has been around, or like the universe has been around for 65 million years? No. And the defense that I read up on, or like that sounds the most valid to debunk this, was when God made Adam, did he make like a fetus, or did he make like a man first? And the answer is he made a man.
Yes.
So whenever God made the universe in 7 days, 7 real days, he made the universe as it is basically now. Like he made, probably whenever he made a deer, he made a fully grown deer, not a deer, a fetus, whatever you want to call that. So whenever people are like, oh, well, this light has been going for 65 million years, and that proves it, to me it really doesn't. Like God made the universe.
Is that true?
What are you asking is true?
I thought the light from the sun made it to Earth in like 6 minutes.
Not the sun, a star.
Oh, okay.
And so like that, so yeah, like if God made a man, then he made a star, us being able to view the stars like immediately.
Yeah, and Lane, do you have something to add that's more on topic? Mine is
Mine
on topic,
directly relates to what Wyatt just said.
Okay, then you could go ahead and go first.
I was just wanting just to like kind of summarize what Wyatt was saying, just how I understand the argument that he's making, because I have said the same thing to people. So just very simply, when God made Adam, when you looked at Adam when he was 5 minutes old, he looked like he was 30 years old. Really, we know he had only existed for 5 minutes. God had only made him for 5 minutes, but he made him a full-grown man. So we know Adam was 5 minutes old, but he looked like he was 30 years old. Very similarly, when he made the earth, we know the earth is only 10,000 years old, but it looks like it's 63 million years old. That's how I understand
Which
it.
That is a very good point.
That is a very, and I don't think I've honestly ever thought about it like that. I've always viewed it as like, oh, they're looking at it wrong. Like they're looking at like the earth, and they're just like, erosion, whatever. I don't know how they do all that, but I've just been like, they're looking at this wrong. But it's possible that the earth just looks that old, yet it's not. It's just how God made the earth, because it's awesome or something like that.
Yeah, but also you have to consider
Based even.
like just science. Like science has to have evolution. It has to have the earth being so absolutely like old, because science cannot acknowledge God because God is unexplainable, which it honestly like is. That's kind of like I can't even comprehend or think about it because he's just been there forever. It is hard to think about, and like that is why science has to go out of their way to like maybe accept like fraudulent stuff without peer reviewing, or have very big bias going into things, because it just does not make sense to say otherwise unless you acknowledge the existence of something unexplainable like God.
But yeah, I think, is there anything we missed? Basically, we're at 45 minutes right now, so if we want to summarize anything, or if there's anything we missed, or you guys want to talk about.
Let me do a quick Google search. I brought I brought
What
up.
did I miss about the dinosaurs?
No, I brought up carbon dating. Let me make sure I know what it is.
I think I think the carbon dating thing is basically Earth looks old, but it's not. That's basically carbon dating in a nutshell.
My roommate, I was talking to my
possible.
roommate, who's an atheist lib, by the way, and I was talking to him, and I was like, something about the Earth, and he was like, well, what about carbon dating? And I was like, okay, explain it to me. Explain to me what carbon dating is. Like, how do you know? And he was
According to
like,
this,
half-lives or something. I was like, yeah, you don't even know. Like, it's literally. And here's a quote by a very like a kind of, I think, pretty world-renowned philosopher, Eric Dubay, once said something. I don't know verbatim, but very wise man. Many books and documentaries he's made. Lots of good stuff there. He said something like, blindly, or I want to get it right. It was something like, following science because scientists say it isn't true science. That's religion. And that religion is not really even based around anything, so it's a bad religion. I botched that quote. I'll look it up for a future podcast. I'm also pretty sure even he was quoting someone, so we'll clear that up in a future episode. But the point stands. Just to blindly follow quote science because scientists say it's true, like, that's not science. Like, if he's just like, oh well, people smarter than me say carbon dating and half-life, so it must be true. Like, if you can't explain why you believe something, I don't think you should believe in it, personally, as a person.
Yeah, and just like this is all wrapped up in our schools now. So literally like millions and millions and millions of children are going through school, learning about evolution, learning about dinosaurs, learning about gravity, learning about all this stuff that in reality, when looking at it, like I'm an adult now, I'm like, is this 100% true? Like, what they're telling me in school 100% true? Because I remember learning about evolution, and just I was raised in a Christian home, and so I always felt weird about it. Um, Luckily, we didn't. I was not really into biology. I only had taken like one class in high school, and they didn't really cover it that much. So luckily, there wasn't that much on it. But I remember I remember feeling a bit weird about it in school. But I'm definitely glad that I'm just even if I am wrong, it in reality it doesn't really matter if I'm wrong or right. I'm just glad that I'm asking the questions because I think that's important. Like blindly following the herd, sheep being, that we have that word sheep, that is actually important. It's important that you ask these types of questions because you shouldn't just be following everything blindly. And that relates to whatever religion you're following. Look actually what are you actually believing, and what is your actually faith built on.
True. Okay, and this is relating to what I was talking about after my 5-second Google search. It's an interesting fact. So carbon dating is according to this, if I can find it, it is a method for determining the age of an object containing organic material by using the properties of radiocarbon. So then after that, I did a follow-up search and looked up the oldest thing ever carbon dated. And according to this, it was this is according to nature.com, the oldest single tree for which this has been done, a bristlecone pine from California, was about 5,000 years old. So that does line up with our theories.
Well,
The things that come up apparently as for carbon dating as super old, it says on here that there was like a rock or like a fossil found like 3.5 billion years ago is what it says, but rocks are not organic material, believe it or not. So
well, and this I'm not quoting, but I watched a debate between Bill Nye and Ken Ham, and something that Ken Ham discussed was about carbon dating and how it's kind of a loose scientific method or process, however you want to describe the process that they use. But Ken Ham described that they had found like a tree and a rock within the same like you know I like they took a sample and found a tree and a rock in the same sample, and they dated the rock like billions of years old, and they dated like the tree like millions of years old, and the tree was like within the rock. So it's like, what is even really happening here? I feel like this is just. I feel like they don't even know what's really going on.
Well, according to my Google search, the timelines do line up for like an around 6,000 year Earth.
I would not agree with that.
I would
source.
100% not agree. I mean, I haven't done a deep dive, but
Not disagreeing with what the source is saying, but disagreeing like they've carbon dated things billions of years old.
yes, and I've seen what you're talking about with the billions of years, and I think they're talking about like your tree is an example of a living tree, where they've carbon dated like fossils. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yes. I think what that source is saying is they took a sample of a living tree in California and they found it to be 5,000 years old. Don't quote me on that.
And maybe I'm not understanding how they're doing this, but whenever I read the definition of carbon dating, it said organic material, and in like my opinion, unless I'm like just wrong, if you're like a fossil is a rock, there is no organic material left. So
I don't know, but all I'll say is, I was gonna say something so important, I forgot.
I'm sure there's.
Dang it!
I mean, I don't know, but I'm sure there probably is some organic material left in the fossil. I could be completely wrong. Lane looks like he might know, but I don't know.
No idea. But just to wrap things up.
Yeah, either way, I actually do have one point I want to say, but basically with carbon dating, let's say they could say to wrap up carbon dating at least. Like they say this proves that something is like maybe a billion years old. At the end of the day, I don't want to be that guy, but how do you really know? The answer is you don't, because there's no documented history that far back or anything to go off.
No, and what I remembered what I was going to say is you will never meet anyone that actually understands the process of how they actually carbon date something. Like that is, you will never meet someone who actually understands how this process actually works. Because one, there's so few people probably that actually know what they're doing, and two, those people are important people, and you're not going to meet them. And three, it actually is probably not a real science, or there's some sketchy things going on. I'm just skeptical that they would like. Why would they date something a billion years old versus 2 billion? Like that's a very very large amount of time. Like what would you see in something that you could make that assumption between a billion or 500 million? It seems a bit too far, too much of a stretch for me.
Absolutely, I agree. I think we are admittedly like very ill-informed about carbon dating, so I think
we know nothing. This entire podcast we know nothing about.
Yeah, but I mean, but in our defense, nobody knows anything. We just think about like the opposition, and we at least try to think things through, in my opinion.
The purpose of this podcast is to be for normal people having normal conversations. None of us are experts in any field, but we ask the questions because we are not sheep.
Yeah, and I mean, like, when we openly, like, admit that we know nothing, and that no one knows nothing, and our goal is genuinely to learn. Like, and because for most of our lives, like, I mean, yeah, like, I've always felt iffy about, like, dinosaurs, but I've believed in them forever until kind of recently. I've kind of felt like evolution, blah, 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 Genesis doesn't really work out, but I haven't really questioned it. But as we're getting older and about to, soon be entering truly being entering adulthood and or young adulthood or whatever, like when we're truly going to be entering the real world, I think it's important for people to start questioning things and admit that we just don't know.
Yeah, and I think like just being able to like critically think on your own and form your own opinions about everything, even if it was stated as fact. Because I mean, back to what Lane said about Piltdown Man or whatever, like it was a fact for like 40 years or whatever.
The black pill man.
It was a fact for like 40 years. that like there was a link between like apes and humans, and guess what? It was all fraud. It was all a lie. So it just is kind of open your eyes. But okay, so circling back all the way to the beginning, just like kind of my final statement. I talked about how like dragons were kind of all over ancient history. I did look for like some things about dinosaurs, which even though the term of dinosaurs are new, but there are, which again they could be fake. We don't know. I haven't even seen these actual sites for myself. Could be like computer renderings or something. I honestly have no idea. But I do see like carvings of things that do look like what we believe are dinosaurs, but very, very minimal amount to like what I've seen with dragons. But I did just want to say that to where maybe dinosaurs did exist and like it was recorded in ancient history. But at the end of the day, I do not know. And that is all I want to say personally for the rest of this podcast. So I'll just hand the mic off and let you guys talk. Wrap things up.
My final thing is, I agree everything we've said so far. I agree. I do want to state though, and I think it's important, especially coming from like a Christian biblical point of view. To me, these are good things to talk about, and these are issues that are important. But there's a difference in an issue that is crucial to someone's faith and salvation, and not. And I think while I believe the Earth to be 10 to 12,000 years old, not sure if I believe in dinosaurs anymore. Certainly don't believe in any sort of macroevolution. I don't think, as from a Christian point of view, necessarily that means you can't believe in evolution. I think you can still be a Christian. I think you can still be a genuine, true Christian and go to heaven and have a personal relationship with Jesus and believe the earth is a million billion years old. Like, I don't think this is a crucial salvation issue. I think it's important to read what the Bible says and to understand what the Bible says and to take what it says as fact and to understand that's the word of God. But at the end of the day, I think you can have a relationship with God and believe in dinosaurs and believe in evolution and believe the earth is 100 million years old, even if I disagree personally.
I just have a correction to make. I think at the very beginning of this episode, I think I may have accidentally said the dragon or the beast from the west, and I meant east, and it's been bothering me this whole time, so I just want to say that.
If you go west far enough, you get
Hold on.
east. But yeah, I think that wraps everything up. Basically, what we come down to is we don't know.
So I do have to, even though I said I was done talking, if you go west, you go west forever. And same with east. I don't know why it said if you go west long enough, you hit east. That is incorrect statement because of how north is.
Anyways, that was a dumb statement by Ross.
Aren't they all?
And that's the podcast. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.